In part two with Dan from Smart Spaces, we're looking at both the benefits of smart buildings and the reasons why people are investing in it and might go ahead with this type of thing. So, um, I suppose one of the things that we discussed offline was the landlord occupier side. So, should we start there in terms of why? Well, I suppose the different motivations behind why you might go down the smart spaces route and the different impacts on them.
Yeah, definitely. So the landlord side depends what your product offer is. Obviously, maybe a traditional office space, so a lease of say 5 to 10 years, or a flex space. We'll start off with the traditional lease space. So one, you're making commitments to net zero. So you're going to have stringent reporting metrics around your energy and how much energy you consume, especially the EPC ratings. So you need to know exactly how your building's performing and correct behaviour before you deviate off your projections. And so, if you get a neighbour's 5-star rating, if the tenant moves in and they consume too much energy, you're going to find you're not going to meet that. You're going to drop down to a 4-star the next year. And obviously, it's not going to be good for publicity, and it's certainly not good for saving the planet. So we can track that energy usage, we can track it against occupancy, and we can provide that data to the landlord to make sure that they're on track and they're meeting their net zero objectives. We also provide things like smartphone access because it's far more convenient. I think post-COVID, a lot of people lose plastic cards. Obviously, plastic's not great for the planet anyway. And so that's a really nice marketing piece for them. So they're taking someone around the building, they can whiz up to a door, they can open it with their phone using the Apple Wallet or the Google Wallet, or they can use a smartwatch and so on. And it's that convenience. It also means if they want to send a temporary card to someone, so if they want to send a card to an agent that's going to do a viewing, they can do that through the cloud. You don't need to post them a plastic card. They don't need to go and collect a plastic card from reception. So you've got that side of it. But that also gives us the data of when did they do the viewing, how many times did they go. It gives you a lot of data about that viewing, and then also did the space get disabled when that person left. So the landlord, I think, is very much about facilitating access, good visitor access, street to seat journey, how quick you can get in a lift up to a floor. I think it's the amenity. So if you've got a cafe, obviously that needs to make a profit ideally, and you want people to use it. You don't want to waste money investing in a fantastic amenity that no one uses. Same for the cycling, same for the lockers, changing rooms, all of that facility you've invested in, you want to make sure it gets used. And I think the app for a landlord is the perfect way to advertise and sell that amenity and track if it actually gets used, so you've got some data for your next development. And so I think that's the landlord piece. I think then the flex operators looking to monetize a lot of this. So meeting rooms, they want to get you the easiest way, one-click purchase. So you've paid for your room, £65 an hour, that's collected. Once that goes to the end of the hour, we know the person's still using the room, we can bill for another hour. So you're doing a lot for the flex operator there. And that's it. I think that pretty much wraps up the main things we see or problems we solve for the landlord. You then got the occupier, and they want to lease space that's actually going to get used. They want their employees back in the office, ideally, not all the time, but certainly 3 days a week. And so they're going to want to advertise how great the office is. So actually, if the landlord's put all these amenities in the building, and then the employer can advertise all these great amenities back to their staff, but also show when their colleagues are in, also give them the ability to book desks, book metering, book their lockers, you've met in the middle. And so you're making the building more productive, more attractive for the employee. The employer can track that and what days people are using the office, and the landlord's getting a building that's actually getting used. And so you've got that holistic picture, and the two, together are very powerful. And that is the future of offices, in my opinion.
I really found that quite interesting. So I suppose one of my questions was going to be, what are the reasons people are investing in it? And ultimately, for a landlord, I'm guessing it's people are enjoying using their building, therefore less likely to churn and move on somewhere else. And then for an occupier, it's the fact that the staff are engaged in the space or teams are engaged in the space, and therefore getting more out of them in terms of everyone's more productive. Do you have a couple of case studies that you're from both perspectives in terms of what some of the benefits someone derived from it, or how they then went about something they saw, like from the landlord perspective, they saw bike space wasn't being used and what they did to improve that engagement. Have you got a couple of case studies on that?
Yeah, certainly. So you've got 22 Bishopsgate. We have 18,000 users there. It's 1.4 million square feet. So one of the things we solved really early on was, that was a lot of people to go to the security office to have their photograph taken, to give them their details and get a plastic access card, and then they'd have to go up to their office, their employer, to get another access card for their tenant space. And so, that straight away, we digitised that. We put a specification in place that would allow us to provide a credential that would work on both the landlord and the tenant doors, the occupier's doors. And so the way they actually move into 22 Bishopsgate is they download the 22 Bishopsgate app, they register with their corporate email, they prove they have access to their email, there's a multi-factor element there, and then the credentials sent to them straight away. But the most powerful thing with the app at that point, it then showcases to that end user, right, you've got your pass, you can get in, you can book your visitors in. So if you want to show off your new office to your friend, you can add them to the app and it will send them a QR code that will facilitate their access. You can look at all of the amenities, so you can see the market, you can actually pre-order your coffee, you can pre-order your lunch, you've got loyalty in there, so if you scan your QR code in the app, you'll get your 10th coffee free. You also get pushed offers as and when they're released, and you can subscribe through preference. So if you're not interested in that, you can switch that off, but actually you quite like the gym, you can switch that on and you'll get the offers for the gym. You can see and access the gym from there. You can access the ACP, which is the active commuter park. And we're actually working on quite a nice feature. You said, what was the things that we are doing sort of a phase one once we've got the data, is actually showing, just like a car park, where the availability is within the active commuter park. So there's 1,700 bike spaces, and there's a pink zone, a blue zone. We can show you how many spaces are in each zone. We can give you some details about each of those zones. So, what type of racks are in there. Is it suitable for electric bike, for a road bike and so on? What facilities are there? So pumps, servicing equipment. But yeah, we can show you that availability, but also once your bike's there, we can show you where it is. So when you come back, you haven't even got to remember you're in the blue zone. It will show you where your bike is located. So that does a couple of things. For the occupier, it's fantastic because they're getting really easy usage of the facilities. But for the landlord, it's tracking how many spaces they've got. Do they need to plan to put more bike racks in? Do they need less bike racks? They've got that data for new developments in the future, so they're armed with much better data. And also we're doing the same for the lockers as well. So, if someone leaves a gym kit in there and it's festering after 2 weeks, we can send a push notification for them to go and clear it out. But that means that you're not losing lockers, because if you had key lockers, you have no intelligence. You could find that there's 100 people that haven't been back to their locker in 3 months. The only way you're going to know whether they have is to go round and unlock this manually, which is a huge time-consuming thing to do. And obviously using the technology to track this in the background will optimize it. So certainly I think that's a good case study on how we've helped a landlord.
Yeah, that's why I hadn't even thought about the the locker side of things, because you're right, we've been into gyms plenty of times and it looks like the same padlock may have been there for quite a while, but you've got no way of knowing. But I also related to the where did I park my car type thing. I've forgotten that before.
I've done that. I genuinely thought my car had been stolen once. Like I was a young lad, I think I literally was 17 at the time. Went to Lakeside Shopping Centre on a Friday, whizzing round, more interested in what I was buying that day. And then just at the end of the day, when I went to the car park, I thought I paid no attention to where I was parked. And I remember walking through car park after car park. I don't know if I hoped my car had been stolen because it wasn't the greatest car, and I thought maybe the insurance would be worth more than what it was worth. In terms of how much I paid for it, but yeah, eventually we come across it, and but that it's funny, they only do that once, and then that forever on. I'm like, right, blue zone, floor 4.
Make a note.
I need to think about it. Actually, it's funny you say that, because it just thinks of another case study in our app. Is one that's really funny. Is tell me if you've ever experienced this. When you go to a building and you click the floor on the lit panel outside the lift, and it goes go to lift C. Have you ever forgotten which lift it's told you to go to?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But especially when you're in a conversation with someone, you mid-conversation, you press it, and you're like, and then the lift comes, you're like, oh, was I C? Was I C?
Definitely.
Put that into the app. So when you badge in, it will tell you which lift. And so you can see A, B, and it stays on there till the lift arrives. So you seriously, you can't forget. And they're the sort of nudges we want to do in the background that, you don't really realise we're doing, but we are making your life easier.
And that's I suppose it comes back to that design part you mentioned earlier, and that's a tricky one to get right. Very easy to get wrong, I think, in terms of user journey and how you then make that information useful. But that's a whole other topic, I think.
What we offer is that consultancy, and again, I've said it a few times now, but it's that street to seat journey, and it's a street to seat for a visitor, a street to seat for an employee, a contractor, a staff member, or like an operations person, and so. Yeah, we'll play that through and go, what are the touch points? What doors are they going to need to go through? What turnstiles? What lifts? What technology is in play? How do we make that as streamlined as possible? And then you start to realise, actually, I haven't got the right technology for my lifts to be able to tell the person which lift to go to. I haven't got the right reader technology to support a QR code and a smartwatch. And so we will advise and say, well, this is the best way to do it.
Well, that brings me on to a question I was going to ask a touch later, actually, which is where do people go wrong with smart buildings? As in, I imagine some people might invest in it up to a point and then they realise they're not getting great return on investment, so they sort of pause or move away from that. But typically, I imagine that's because they've not implemented it in the right way. So are there typical things you see where people go wrong in terms of whether it's the wrong readers or only investing in certain areas that mean this doesn't give enough benefit? Are there things like that you see?
Yeah, there's so much that can go wrong. It is quite sad, really, and it's improving all the time. I think the first thing we see, I think we sort of started with this question today, but we think we can define smart really well. Like what I explained to you is what I deem a smart building to be. Not everyone will agree, but that's what I believe. And I think we've found the majority of people that we work with believe that too. We're deployed across 75 million square feet globally. But I think that's the first problem. You go a lot of times wasted on trying to define what smart is. And that can be hours and hours in consultancy. It can then lead to the wrong technologies being purchased because you've defined a certain strategy. And I think also people abuse it. I think there's companies out there that they know the client doesn't understand smart, where we define smart and we say this is the outcomes you will get, and we'll put accreditation in place like Smart Score, and we'll say we'll get you a Smart Score Platinum Gold, and they know exactly what they're buying up front, and we're committed to that, and we're eliminating risk for them. When you keep it open-ended with what is smart, and then you can go to a main contractor and they make the decision on behalf, that can sometimes lead to them buying a load of unnecessary equipment. And I think the worst trend we've seen recently is adding in secondary BMSs to get data out to the cloud. So the landlord is paying for a BMS, which is tough to get working efficiently in any building. They're then buying another middleware BMS, which will take data out of the base build BMS and then putting that into the cloud. And I think that is just crazy. You've now got blame game between BMS vendor 1, BMS vendor 2. You've got data translation. And so I think, that's a mistake we're seeing made a lot. And then, the other one is the readers, I think people will put the wrong readers that aren't even mobile capable. And that's even when we've got it in the specification. We have a specification that says put mobile capable readers, and then they don't put mobile capable readers in. And there's a real sad thing in D&B contracts and construction in the UK where, it's not been picked up early enough because they didn't have an MSI involved or someone overseeing it. We would typically oversee it, but if we come late to the game, so we come post-PC, we wasn't there for that, and we go and scan and we say, well, look, you've said that you've asked for mobile here and it's in your contract. You haven't got mobile here. Now, the building's built. There's 300 readers. Sometimes even the landlord goes, to go back and pull all the fabric off the wall and put this reader in and, the time, and I need to get this leased. They give up. They go, do you know what? I know it would be nice to have, but then they've missed that opportunity. And then coming back to probably the last problem is all about user behavior. If you're not strong enough, if you don't believe in it enough, like what the beauty of our clients is, they totally believe in the technology we're deploying. So they'll have a culture change within their business to use it, improve it, and make it worthwhile. If you just then go, right, okay, we haven't got the readers, we'll deploy the app anyway, and then the app is managed by someone who hasn't got any kind of skills around this. They don't, typically they've got a job spec they signed up to 5-6 years ago. All of a sudden you've asked them to manage an app and they're like, well, that's not in my job spec. And they're like, well, I'm not getting paid extra for this. And then they don't put any good content on there. They don't even upload the meeting rooms. They don't upload any of the facilities. It's just there. And it's just, it's got a nice brand on it. And it might have some directions to a local cafe you could get off Google Maps. It's going to fail. You're not going to get any data out of it because no one's going to use it. So, yeah, you need the culture. You need to know what you want. And you need the right hardware. So, yeah, totally. It's a good question.
I can completely relate to that, actually. And I think it's... very crudely, I think you've got three camps with technology. You've got what you said, really bought into it, and in terms of engage with it, want to make sure they get the best out of it, understand it. You've got the obviously the other extreme, which is not interested at all. Fair enough. And then you get this, I suppose, the camp in the middle, which is the one we've just spoken about, where, and it's definitely more nuanced than this, but where they sign up to it, but it's half-hearted. And if you're half-hearted, you're not going to get the benefit. You might as well be in camp no, and not try. You've got to engage. And I always compare it to buying a car. Like if you buy a car, great, it can get you really quickly from A to B. But if you don't engage with the car, you don't learn to drive it, it's just going to sit on the driveway, and you're still quicker walking.
Yeah.
Whereas the car can get you massive benefits if you, engage, learn to drive it. Take it out, all that type of stuff. So
no, I totally agree, and I think it's that lack of commitment. I think where we see that problem surface the most is POCs, proof of concept, because the client's not paid fully for it. You've not been paid fully for it, so you don't always put your 100% effort in. They certainly don't put theirs in, and then neither of you make it a success. And so we're not fans of POCs. We don't think they work. We've got other ways of delivering our software and letting you test our software or interview our other clients and see it in action. And I think we're quite fortunate now. We're at 75 million square feet. We can demonstrate that. So we do less POCs than we ever have. But, wind back 5 years ago, we've done a hell of a lot of POCs and they didn't all work because they just didn't have the commitment. You need to be financially committed. You need to be committed as culturally, and you've got to have the same targets and objectives. And so, yeah, totally agree. And so, I think probably not there yet, but give us another year or two, we might start turning stuff down based on the cultural fit. We'll say, look, we don't feel you're ready to embrace this. We haven't done that to date. We've been quite fortunate, actually. When people ask what type of clients we have, they were early adopters, and so they're really passionate about tech, so we don't suffer with that. But certainly, I could see us turning things down in the future. If we didn't have that fit with a client.
Yeah, and I think actually that's important for you as a business and for the customer, because then once they then come back into being in a different headspace, then they'll start to derive the benefits, and you both win from that.
Yeah.
But it's it's a thing you see a lot. I think with tech, it's you wanting the silver bullet just to work on its own without having to put the effort in behind it. And of course, nothing works like that.
Yeah, certainly. I think the other thing there is like, if you build it, they will come. It doesn't happen. You can't just, if me and you decide today to start a totally different business, it'd be an e-commerce business, it'd be selling coffee. It's like the best coffee we've managed to track down, really nice packaging, design nice packaging, put a really nice website out there. People won't just show up to that website. And so it's the same with the app for the building. If you don't get behind it, put it in front of the client and show them how it works, why you should use it, and talk about the benefits and embrace it, you won't get adoption. Yeah. If you build it, they will come. It doesn't exist.
No, I'd agree with that. I think one of the, slightly off on a different tangent here, but under this aspect, is we talked about hardware briefly, but I can think back to a building I went around. It was a big apartment building in London, and they released it. I think this is 10 years ago, but I remember going into it at that point, and they had all these docks on the wall. You put your phone in, and this is slightly different to obviously smart buildings, but you put your phone in, you could then control everything in the room. But immediately it was already the wrong sort of dock, the wrong charging thing, and they're only just releasing it. Is that a problem in terms of smart buildings, in terms of cost of implementing and then updating, or actually is it been set up in a way where actually it's quite easy to use what you've got and interchange it at the right points?
Yeah, no, it's something we really have to think about. So when we're designing a smart building, and we're looking at the hardware that's going to make up the backbone of the building, it's choosing the right hardware. And it's a bit like a decision we had to make a long time ago in our business, where we decided what language to program our system in, because there were some really cool, funky languages that had materialised at the time. And they looked really interesting. They were definitely the trendy things to program in, but you had to think about the longevity of that. And like, if you've developed your platform on a code base that then dies later on, programming language that gets deprecated, we've been in a lot of trouble. We wouldn't be able to get any talent. We wouldn't be able to maintain our platform. And so we looked at proven languages that had existed before our business existed, but continued to be improved, were distributed globally, had lots of documentation and training, and so we had access to talent. And I think that with the hardware, we have to think about this hardware and its longevity. And so things like little adapters, we're certainly trying to avoid. Open language protocols that anyone can interface with, which have mass adoption, big communities, we're all for. And that's the problem with the proprietary languages, because one, they're opaque. Typically they require a license fee to get access to, and then the vendor or manufacturer of that or provider can just deprecate, delete, finish innovating in that space, and then you've lost that adapter, and it's sort of the virtual equivalent of the iPhone jack. Obviously moving to USB-C already, so that's already happened already, where you're going to find someone's going to show up, can't connect to the dock. So we have to think that through, and that translates into BMS controllers, lighting controllers, HVAC systems, and then the smartphone itself, and what is available in the smartphone to interface with the building. So big consideration. So far so good, actually. We've got compatibility across our whole portfolio. I think if you had to boil it down to one thing, it is open protocol.
Interesting. Well, in my head, I was thinking about your Flashdown nickname from the start, and that stuck with you in terms of things going obsolete.
Yeah.
So in terms of the coding side, that's really fascinating. I imagine that's a massive challenge. Anything else you think that's worth discussing on this segment? I suppose about benefits and reasons.
Yeah, I think that it's anyone who's got a surveying background or looking to go into property surveying, they should embrace technology if they can find the time. I think if you come in as a really tech savvy surveyor with can leverage ChatGPT to help write proposals, to do any calculations on drawings, you're going to be up to 30 to 50% more productive than your peers. So I think it's really worth you taking the time to embrace it. Don't be scared of it. Don't think it's going to take your job. It's not for the meantime, but it's certainly going to help you and give you the edge and the advantage. It might even mean you can do a 6-hour day, not an 8-hour day. So, I think that would be my recommendation to the audience.